We want it. We need it. Must have the precious. They stole it from us. Sneaky little gatecrashers, especially the Welsh one. Wicked, tricksy, false. No, not the gatecrashers, especially not the Welsh one. Yes, precious, false. They will cheat you, hurt you, lie. The gatecrashers are my friends. They let me ruin the slack. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. You kill threads. Listening, I'm not listening. They're just here to talk about wizards and the hobbitses and the ranger. No, not the ranger. Yes, the ranger. The one who broke his foot on a helmet. Go away. Too many times about the helmet. Go away. Where would you be without me? Golem! I saved us. It was me. We survived because of me. Not anymore. We have a new master. A master that cares. What did you say? Master left after us now. She likes me. She sends me all the realms with pictures of the elf shirtless. We don't need you. Leave now and never come back, or you'll be banned from the chat. No. Commander doesn't have admin authority. Leave now and never come back. Leave now and never come back. I told him to go away, and away he goes, precious. Gone. Swiggle is free. Time to find the ginger, the vixen, and the Welsh one.
Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favourite thing. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to make all nerdy things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find the universe that you'll fall in love with. Hi, my name's Ethan. I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Scarlett, and I use she, her pronouns.
So we're here today to talk about The Lord of the Rings, the films specifically.
Yes, the films.
Insert beautiful music here.
Yes.
So, Ash, why didn't you kick us off with a quick back-of-the-box blurb?
All right, so The Lord of the Rings is a trilogy of films: The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, directed by Peter Jackson and adapted from the books, an immersive world created by author J.R.R. Tolkien. They are an expansive, epic fantasy adventure films that delve into the themes of friendship, duty, power, nature conservation, and the all-encompassing battle between good and evil. While there are many plots woven into the three films, the main narrative is the destruction of the One Ring by Frodo Baggins, the Ring Bearer, and the rest of his fellowship. Destruction of the One Ring can only be accomplished by throwing it into the fires of Mount Doom. This episode will stick to a discussion of the Jackson film series only, because we would be a fool of a took if we tried to cram a book discussion into this limited hour as well.
I think we can do it.
Yeah. maybe a little bit of the books. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
How did that come into your lives?
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
So, there's not really that interesting. It was a thing that happened and has been with me ever since. Like, I watch it every year. I love it. But I think you two are much more in love with this series than I am.
I'll go ahead. I remember when these movies first came out, and I was younger, and I remember specifically watching The Two Towers with like my dad. My mom was at work somewhere. I think she was working night shift or she was away for something. And it was me and my dad and my aunt and my uncle. And we watched The Two Towers. And when they introduced Gollum, I was like so freaked out. I remember like I was probably like, I think I was still like in elementary school or like, maybe I was in 5th grade or 6th grade. I was still like younger. And, I remember I could not sleep on my own at night. So like I slept in my dad's bed because I just was freaked out. And he made it so much worse because he would just do the Gollum voice to scare me. And I hated it. But I remember fondly watching those when I went into high school. I just became like the lore, so much of it. I just like delved deep into, learned how to write in Dwarvish runes. And that was fantastic. They were pretty easy to learn. For a history project, we had to go around downtown and take pictures, but we would get extra credit if we made it like a theme or something. So we had to like look at like different architecture and tie it into world history or something. And we would get extra credit if our group did like a theme, like for our whole project. So we decided to do Lord of the Rings. So we borrowed costumes from the theater and we dressed up as rangers and like maidens and elves. And we went around downtown taking pictures and pretending we were like in Lord of the Rings.
Amazing.
So it's always been very deep connected to me. Shout out to my best friend Masami for giving me the Even Star necklace for a birthday present one year. But I just absolutely love the films. I think that there's so much going on and they're so rich and beautiful. So I'm very excited we get to talk about it today.
Yeah, me too. I would probably say that Lord of the Rings is the definitive fandom of my life. It was maybe not the first. I think Star Wars was probably the first that I was introduced to, but I think Lord of the Rings was the first one that really changed my life. Let's set the scene. The year is 2001 and Ashley is 13. And, you know, I was in middle school and I remember these films coming out and I had always been a lifelong fan of fantasy. So I was an avid reader. I hadn't read Lord of the Rings at that point. I still feel like 13 was a little... I had come in contact with The Hobbit, but not necessarily like the trilogy. And I've read so much fantasy like up in my life up to that point. And then the Lord of the Rings just hit, and my life was forever changed. It just hit me right at a sweet spot. I saw The Fellowship of the Ring in the movie theaters 5 times. I still have all of my movie tickets. It's just something that was so special to me. I just wanted to save everything that I came in contact with. To our session today, I've brought my little binder that I still have into adulthood it's a big binder of just like things similar to Scarlett. I didn't learn Dwarvish, but I tried to teach myself Elvish. I was just really obsessed, to put it mildly. And it has just stayed with me forever. As soon as I finished, as soon as the first movie was over in the theater, I remember going to Barnes & Noble and buying the books and just like, digging right in. And I've just been a lifelong fan since then. I collect the swords from the films. I mean, just everything. It's very ingrained in the person that I've become. So this is a very special episode for me, and I'm very excited that we're doing it.
Okay, so why do we dig into the history of Lord of the Rings? Scar, why didn't you kick us off?
All right, so the Lord of the Rings film series has an extensive history, starting from development to its present day. No secret in Hollywood that Lord of the Rings book series by Tolkien was considered unfilmable at the time. Previous scripting attempts had always fallen through, even one from notable figure Walt Disney. Throughout the 1970s, multiple attempts at adapting Tolkien's stories through animation were made by the production company Rankin and Bass, as well as one by director Ralph Bakshi. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
And then teenage future filmmaker had never read The Lord of the Rings, but bought tickets to a showing of Bakshi's animated adaptation. While Jackson didn't love the choices made, he was immediately enamoured with the world and bought paperback copies of Tolkien's work to explore the source material. He became, like many of us, a captivated fan. In 1995, after directing The Frighteners, which is a great film by the way, Jackson and his wife and creative partner Fran Walsh were looking for their next project to be an original story that was high fantasy centred, but Jackson could not get Tolkien out of his head. They approached Miramax Studios to obtain the rights for a 2-film adaptation. After Jackson got to work on scripting, it quickly became clear that a 3-film arc was better suited, and New Line picked up a project from Miramax. They allowed Jackson to take an incredibly unorthodox approach to the film series, allowing him to film all 3 movies simultaneously instead of breaking in between each production.
And Jackson's adaptation of Tolkien's work doesn't exactly follow the corresponding book's material. He and his scriptwriting team, which is actually Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, they went for a more chronological approach to the story, moving around established scenes, adding their own, and cutting characters. So Jackson worked with longtime collaborators at Weta Workshop to develop armor, set models, makeup, special effects, and weapons, and to ensure the sets looked as authentic to Tolkien's descriptions as possible. He then hired famed Tolkien illustrators Alan Lee and John Howe to consult with the directors of set design and art direction. The decision was made to film on location in New Zealand, taking advantage of its diverse and beautiful landscape to construct magnificent sets. Cameras began to roll in October of 1999, completing the initial set of filming in December of 2000. Pickups and reshoots happened annually all the way into 2004.
In the very early 2000s, CGI effects were not as believable or as effective as we know them today. Jackson and the team at Weta were pioneers inventing programs to create the special effects needed for the trilogy, and their work for the time was an absolute triumph.
The first film, Fellowship of the Ring, released December 19th, 2001 to widespread critical acclaim and box office success, with the following 2 films being equally well received. In total, the 3 films were nominated for 30 Academy Awards and won 17. The final film, Return of the King, won all 11 categories it was nominated for in 2004, allowing it to join the ranks of record holders Ben-Hur and Titanic for an Oscars clean sweep.
And looking back on these 3 films, it is clear that Jackson succeeded in making a widely beloved trilogy out of what many considered to be the best high fantasy book series of all time. Very rarely is there an adaptation that's so well received critically and commercially. It's clear there was magic amongst the cast and crew as they poured their hearts into the development of the Lord of the Rings films. Today we sit on the cusp of the first film's 20th anniversary. And these movies have had a lasting cultural impact, from encouraging bucket list tourism in New Zealand to visit Hobbiton, to creating and prolonging interest in the fantasy works that we have today. We would definitely not have had Game of Thrones on HBO or The Witcher on Netflix or even Wheel of Time on Prime Video if Lord of the Rings had not shown the filmmaking world that high fantasy was a valuable genre worthy of its time and money. Mm-hmm. So, who do we think is who are these films for? Who would like them?
Well, families, definitely. Even though they can be a bit dark at times, there's always light.
Yeah.
It's for families. They are perfect films to watch on a nice Sunday afternoon. It's just perfect.
Yes. Also, fans of high fantasy would probably love this. So if that's a genre that you're into, I'd be surprised if you haven't seen it already. But if you perhaps have been living under a rock and haven't, and you enjoy high fantasy, this is definitely the one for you.
Also, anyone with taste.
Yes.
So not your boyfriend, Scar. So not Dan.
If you have taste, you're going to like this. Impeccable taste, I might add, because these movies are just chef's kiss.
Mm.
And, well, where can you get these films?
Well, right now, all 3, in the US at least, I'm not sure if it's in the UK, I have to double check.
Nope.
But right now, no, okay. So in the US, if you are listening and you are in America, all 3 films are currently streaming on HBO Max. but they're also available to purchase. And sometimes purchasing is the best because you can get some really great editions that have many, many Blu-ray discs where you can have 30 hours of special features, which someone like me will want to watch them all.
Also,
One of my things that I want to eventually have in my collection is the Blu-ray extended edition.
Yes.
Box set collection, because it's beautiful. I've seen some of the extended edition parts, which we'll talk about maybe later on, because there's a specific scene that is the one thing I have a problem with, and I'm not. Yeah, there's one thing that I did not like in the extended edition. That I was like, why? That makes no sense.
Ooh, okay, we're definitely going to talk about that then.
So, yeah, with that, I think it's time we take our break and then jump into a discussion of all three films, No Holds Barred.
Yes.
Go watch these films and then come join us for a good discussion.
Okay, and welcome back. So, where do we want to start, guys?
I figured the characters were probably the best place to start, like the Fellowship, because they're the heart and soul of the films.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I originally paired them up into like corresponding like partnerships that they seem to work within. We don't have to talk about them that way, but that's what I thought about when.
No, that's fine, because I see one of the partnerships you've paid, I want to just do a quote that'll break both of you.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, so let's start off. Frodo and Sam.
I love Sam.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Sam is best boy.
He is. Gardener. He's the best gardener.
Best gardener anyone could ever ask for in Hobbiton.
I relate to him so much because he loves potatoes.
He does. So do I. I think that is probably my favorite food is a potato, and the fact that Sam loves them so much, he just has
potatoes.
Special place in my heart.
Oh, well,
he does have. He has no compassion for Smeagol, though. That is one thing.
Yeah, he's like, no, get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that's true. He's not always so great. That's Smeagol.
I love Sam. I think he brings so much of a heart and soul to the Fellowship.
Yeah.
I think he is kind of tries to be the glue, the cement that holds it together in a sense, because Frodo has his own issues that he's dealing with and his own kind of
he's got a journey he's going on, an emotional baggage that he is just carrying around his neck.
Is it that Sam says he's like, let me carry the load?
Yeah. I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you.
I mean, he fights Shelob and does it so well to protect Frodo, because Frodo is just like not there. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna get taken and stabbed by this, and then I'm gonna get taken by the orcs, but it's okay. And then Sam's like, nah, I'm coming to help you.
I don't know if you remember this, Scarlett, but like in the mid 2000s, like somewhere around the 2010s, TBS, which is a US station, used to have the rights for the films, and they would put them on
show them all the time.
Yeah, like a marathon. So you could just turn it on at any point, and Lord of the Rings might be on. But they had like special commercials that they would show for it, and it was actually just a cutscene of all Frodo and Sam just staring at each other over top of the song "Secret Lovers." It's like the best.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, they definitely had and I mean, not a love undertone, but there is like a love of their friendship, and there is a deep and abiding like love there between them. They went through a journey that almost killed them and came back again.
Yeah. Quite literally, the journey there and back again.
Yeah. So we could move on to the next pairing.
Yeah,
do we want?
let's.
Do we want to go to the Hobbits or the order that I have them in?
Let's go with the order you got them in.
All right. You excited for this one?
Yeah, because I would have followed you. My brother, my captain, my king.
Yes. So we're talking about Aragorn, and his corresponding person I put up here is Boromir, and they have a lot of mirrored scenes together. So I thought that was a good pairing.
Mm-hmm.
God, that scene.
I remember when I remember watching the first one, The Fellowship, which actually, I guess we'll talk about like our favorites, like the 3 movies where we rank them. Fellowship is actually my least favorite out of the 3.
Wow.
Really? Yeah. Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah. Fellowship is actually my least favorite out of 3.
Wow.
But with Boromir, or Aragorn, when I first watched this, when I watched them in the Green Dragon or they're in the tavern. I think it was the Green Dragon. Are they at the Green?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one in Bray.
Yeah, because I remember that song. I might sing it. So when Aragorn is just sitting there, and I'm like, what is this, man? I'm like, you being mysterious over there, just sitting out with your hood up, watching these hobbits.
I think we'll come to it later, but Aragorn is the center of my favorite scene in across these films.
Do tell.
We'll get to it later when we talk about our favorite scenes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. I really, I love Aragorn. He has a great love story. Obviously, Arwen isn't, and I know we're not really talking about the books. She's not always as present in the books as she is in the films, like as central of a character. But I love the way that they brought her into the story, and she is a part of Aragorn. So I really love that story that they told there. And Boromir, obviously, like he ends pretty early in the trilogy. He's gone in the first one. But he has a beautiful trajectory, even towards the end when he obviously like gives his fealty to his king. I don't know. Beautiful scenes. I love them together. Great emotional building in the films.
Yeah.
Now for the comedy relief.
Freaking love Pippin and Merry.
Yes.
I love them.
Just 2 guys who love getting high.
Yes. I feel like in real life and in the films, because I watch a lot of behind the scenes with them, and I almost sent a video of you guys, like to you guys from TikTok of them at like Comic-Con, just talking about how they like lived in a house together and just like they wouldn't leave for like 10 days, and people would come knocking on the door being like, are you guys okay? And they would just be like, we were just drinking and watching movies and we forgot to like come out in the world. Like
I love them so much.
Yeah.
I think that they are just, again, like you said, comic relief, and like all that like is seemingly on their minds is just like, oh, when are we gonna have food? When are we gonna drink? What's going on? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. What about second breakfast?
Yep, they're here for a good time.
Yes.
Until Return of the King.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is where shit hits the fan for them, okay?
Yeah.
They grow. They have their emotional growth in the 3rd film.
Oh, God. I love it. And to this day, I get chills when Pippin sings.
Yeah.
God. That whole song.
You mean the grape scene?
Yes. Yes, the grape scene.
Nom, 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 nom.
It's not just grapes, but it's also like tomatoes too. So
that's right, tomatoes.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny that like I remember watching it in the theater and being like, "Huh, that's the choice." And then the cultural impact that it still has today, him eating those things in that manner, it's just it's crazy.
I also like Pippin just getting picked on all the time by Gandalf.
Constantly.
And everybody else is like, what the hell did you do, Pippin? Like, you couldn't just keep your hands off of something.
I find it really interesting that their emotional growth in the stories happened after they separated. That none of that really happened when they were ever together. Mm-hmm. It was really after they separated that they couldn't lean on each other. They had to find strength, like, within themselves They definitely have like great moments in the third films, especially like Mary at Pelennor Fields. There's just some really big moments that they get to have in those third films.
Pippin was where was he? What was
he was at Gondor.
He was at Gondor.
Yeah,
and then Mary
Gandalf.
Was with Éowyn.
Yeah, so they become separated, but it ends up like working out for them at the end. But in the moment, it's not so hot. All right, so our next pairing is Legolas and Gimli.
Gimli, son of Gloin.
Yes.
I was watching something, and it was somebody was watching I think it was a TikTok video, and it was like from The Hobbit, and you see Gloin, and you look at his helmet, and then they were like, oh, that looks familiar, and then you look at the Lord of the Rings, and Gimli's wearing his father's helmet because it's the same helmet and it has the same details and stuff, and I was like, oh.
I cannot think of Gimli without thinking about poor John Rhys Davies being completely allergic to all of his makeup. And I don't think I had ever really seen pictures of him outside of the makeup or realized it. And then when I was going back through all the special features, when they were filming him for his last day, they let him burn the last prosthetic face mask that he had worn. They let him throw it on a fire. And never have I seen a man run so fast to burn something. Like, he was like, get rid of it. And he all of the skin under his eyes, it was like missing. The poor guy, like, it was just he's really allergic to that stuff.
He's also very tall.
Yes.
Which is hilarious. I think he's like 6 foot something. And he's playing like one of the smallest characters.
Yeah, honestly, like the movie magic that they employed there, it's not. And one of the things I love about the films is that they tried to use practical effects. Yeah, as much as possible. Like, it's a lot of the things are forced perspective when it involves the actors that are supposed to be hobbits or dwarves next to people like Gandalf. They did have some smaller people and actually some children playing some of the characters in wider shots, but a lot of the sets, they built 2 sets, one that the hobbits could walk through and seem average size, one's Gandalf could go through. I mean, and I got a little off track here, but yeah, I just found that so interesting, like, about these films when I started learning about them too.
Well, I think that, real quick, I think that the practical effects are something that I just want more of in nowadays. I get so tired of seeing the overuse of CGI, and I appreciate practical effects are such an art form, and being able to do that. So, at the time, because CGI wasn't like it is now, like, they were kind of like, oh, well, let's do this stuff and make it look really good. But I think that's a thing that we've become too comfortable in with, like, the movie world, is like, we expect CGI in a lot of things. And I just always like when I see a movie and I'm like, oh, that's a practical effect. That's really cool.
Yeah, like, even thinking about Gimli now, how John Rhys Davies had to, like, suffer through with that makeup. I think about, like, Disney's Beauty and the Beast that they did a couple years ago, how the Beast's head, like, I don't know if you know this, but originally he was wearing, what is it, the guy from Downton Abbey? What's his name? Dan
Stevens.
Yes, Dan Stevens. He was originally wearing, like, makeup and a prosthetic head, and they just kind of CGI'd it out. So the whole film he's wearing a CGI head, even though, like, and I just feel like if this was made now, and John Rhys Davies was having those same issues, they would have just CGI'd over his head.
That's what they did in The Hobbit.
Yes.
With the orcs.
Yep. Yeah, which is crazy because, and I mean, I'm sure some of it is like a money-saving technique. Prosthetics aren't cheap, especially when you have mass amounts of people you have to put them on. But there's just something special about watching these films. And for the most part, I mean, with the exception of like those giant battle scenes, like it is makeup on everyone. All the Kiwis came out and they got dressed up.
Yes.
We also have to talk about Gimli's best buddy in the films, which is Legolas, who happened to be, as a 13-year-old girl, the love of my life.
I'm shocked.
Yes.
Yeah, every poster on my wall, every thought in my head was Orlando Bloom. Legolas was his first film role that he got cast in right outside of theater school, and I knew everything about him. I had every unofficial biography that they were making.
Oh my God.
But I love Legolas's character. He is the strong, silent type. He does not have many lines in this film series. In fact, I was really happy when I finally got the extended editions, and I got a couple more lines out of the man. But he's just another character that's in the Fellowship. He's an elf. He's great
Fantastic
with a bow.
Archer.
Yes, great with a bow.
Can surfboard and shoot arrows at the same time?
Yes.
That might come up as my least favorite scene.
How dare you?
CGI just could have been a little better in that one.
I think the big thing too with the two together is the counting and the contest of how many people they take out.
Which, funnily enough, if I remember, like when I was reading the books, did not expect that to actually be something that was in the books. I thought that was an invention for the movies. No, if I remember correctly, which this is going back.
It's in the books, if I remember right.
And I remember reading it and just being like, "Oh, this is not something they made up. This is Tolkien came up with this. Cool."
I think one of the line that gets me the most is when they waited at Helm's Deep. He's like, "Would it help if I fetched you a box?"
He's like, "I can't see." It's like, what's going on?
Their partnership is just so great. I love them.
Yeah, the way they feed off of each other, and I think it's like when they're in the third one when they have that big battle scene with the elephants and everything.
Yeah,
still counts as one.
He's like, it still only counts as one. And Legolas comes down, sliding down the trunk of this giant elephant, and Gimli's so angry.
He is indignant.
I think also there's a stunt that I think they ended up doing. I think most of it was CGI, but I think they were doing portions of it. That was a stunt. And I think Orlando Bloom like broke his shoulder trying to do it, or like dislocated his shoulder or something. I think it was in the second one. It's like a part where he's trying to like, he flips up onto the horse or something.
You know, I don't remember Orlando getting hurt, but I don't
Are we going to talk about it?
Are we? Wait, can we talk
have
about
to.
now?
We have to. So for those of you that don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't. I'm really sure that they don't. You should tell them.
So it's in the second one, right? In Two Towers. So at the end of the first one, they've gotten separated. Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn are all together, and they're trying to find, Merry and Pippin. They're also, like trying to investigate and find them. So in the second one, they get a lead and they're like going to find them, and they hear that there was a group of orcs and stuff, and Uruk-hai that basically got Merry and Pippin. They're like, oh, we gotta go find them. So they get to this area, and there's just a bunch of like burning bodies, and they think that, oh no, what if the hobbits were in that pile? And they find, don't they find like something
it's a helmet. There's a helmet,
it's the leaf from the cloak.
Yeah, the leaf.
Yeah.
So they find like a leaf that they had gotten from Lothlorien in the first one. And so Aragorn's so upset, he gets really mad, and he kicks the helmet, and he screams out in pain, and it's so good. Little do people know that when he kicks the helmet, he actually broke his foot, which is why he was screaming.
You're kidding
my God,
me.
this is wholly new information to me.
That's why he was screaming it. That's why it was real screams of pain. But they went through and it played and it went perfectly.
You're welcome, everyone.
Yeah.
Now, anytime that you watch that
everyone.
movie and that scene comes up, you are obligated to let the person know you're watching with, hey, did you know in this scene?
Pass it on. It is important that you do that.
It is important information. I do have to say, while we're still on Legolas and Gimli, kind of tying back into the extended edition and what I don't like, there's a scene, I think it's in the first one, There's a scene where it's in the extended, they're at a tavern and Legolas and Gimli are drinking. Mm-hmm. And Legolas is like,
I know what you're talking
he's
about.
like, I feel a little like unnerved or something. He's like, oh, this is a little weird. And Gimli's like, ha, and then falls over. That's false. There is no way that an elf would be able to outdrink a dwarf. I'm just saying that right now. I know they did it for comedic effect, but no, how dare you? No way. So dwarfs are known to like drink and hold their liquor.
When I was watching the extended editions earlier today and like the special features, they actually threw that in there because apparently Orlando Bloom is such a lightweight that like you could literally put a small drink in front of him and he would just pass out, like be blackout drunk, like the man could not hold his liquor. And they did it like almost as a joke, but then for some reason felt like they could put it in the movies. I agree with you. I don't know why they did that, but I thought that was a funny anecdote. I had no idea.
That is funny that it was kind of like making fun of him. But in the lore, if we're getting really like nerdy in the lore, there's no way a dwarf would be able, like, an elf would outdrink a dwarf.
Yeah.
Just saying that.
Agreed. So our last pairing, one of them is not a part of the Fellowship. One of them is. One is Gandalf, and then the other is Saruman, who I kind of threw in there because he's kind of like the antithesis to Gandalf in the series. So, thoughts on Gandalf?
Gandalf's great. He's just a wizard who wants to like hang out with a bunch of dwarves and party, and then gets pulled into a bunch of stuff that they have to go fix.
For the second time.
The second time. He's already done it once with Bilbo.
Yep. Just a man who likes an adventure.
Comes into town bringing a bunch of fireworks.
That is like up there with like Gandalf's introduction is up there with like Jack Sparrow in the original like Pirates of the Caribbean as like one of my favorite film entrances of all time. Just to like kind of set up the character and just tell you everything you need to know about them in the first like 5 seconds. Gandalf is definitely there with him coming down saying like, a wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins.
Yes.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
God.
Saruman, played by the great and late Christopher Lee.
Yep.
Excellent man who knew Tolkien inside and out. Absolutely read The Lord of the Rings.
He also knew what it sounded like when a person was stabbed.
Yes! Yes! And Peter Jackson was really put off by that.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, okay. Oh, God. Yeah, he, they have a great wizard battle, which is a real fun scene.
Love the wire work.
Yes, yeah. That's actually, I do really love that, how they're like flying up through the air, and they did utilize, again, a lot of like practical effects and stunt work to really get a lot of that. And today you would envision that as being a lot of CGI, but really they had stuntmen, women flown through the air.
Yeah.
Looks like a great time.
And then to like keep him at bay, Saruman just puts him on top of his tower.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, try to get down from there, bitch.
Yep.
Eagle.
But then he's got that.
He's got the eagle.
Moth. Yeah, the moth.
He's like, here, go get me friends.
Yep.
Although I have seen like the biggest like critique, other people critiquing Lord of the Rings and stuff, and they're like, if Gandalf had these giant eagles and like this giant moth and eagles to help them out, why didn't they just utilize those eagles to get to Mount Doom?
Everyone's favorite excuse for that is that, you know, they have their own business going on. They don't like to involve themselves. When they went to go get Frodo and Sam, that was really, they were just doing a favor. So that's for the record what they like to say as to why that didn't happen. But that is definitely a plot hole.
I love seeing that discourse about that because it's so funny. I mean, granted, I guess if you were flying giant eagles through the sky, I mean, the Eye of Sauron is going to be able to see you more clearly. Yeah. So that's probably the reason why. But
yeah, exactly. There you go. You got it. You got it. So that was the Fellowship. now maybe we could talk about some themes or things that we did or maybe didn't like. What could be some of our favorite scenes or things we didn't like from the films?
I'll go with my favourite scene. I mentioned it involved Aragon earlier. Mm-hmm. It's pretty simple. It's like 10 seconds. It's when he opens the doors at Helm's Deep.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, God. It's so
there
good.
are a lot of people that find that scene.
Yes.
That's up there on some people's list of moments they entered, their sexual awakening.
It was their sexual awakening. Hello. Hello there. Yes. I have to agree that scene is good. I have like probably like 3 or 5 scenes that are probably like my favorites. Ethan, do you want to keep going with yours? If you have any more.
So, can I say all of it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, all of it.
All of it. All of the movies.
All of it.
They're all fantastic. I think I have one that specifically stands out as like my favorites. It's such a weird, like, small moment, but I remember as soon as it happening, like, bursting into tears. And it's in the final scene, with the final film when Aragorn is being crowned as the king, and then he turns around.
No one?
Oh, yes, you bow to no one.
Oh, God.
When I tell you, I lost my mind.
It's every time for me.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yes, and I feel like at that point, especially like if you were a fan of these films and like you were going to see them every single year, you had been on such an emotional journey with these characters. You had spent so much time with them. When he said that to them, and
everyone bows down, and you've got these like 4 little hobbits that are standing there with the whole kingdom just bowing to them.
I was just a sobbing mess through the rest of the ending, and I mean there were a lot of blackout scenes that happened. Every time it would go black, everybody I remember in the theater like started to applaud, but then it came back up again, and we were all kind of like, "Oh, there's more film!" They thought it was over, but it was, I mean, I cried all the way through the end. I love that scene so much. And I think it's just really, it brought across the message of what the films really are. It doesn't matter how small you are, or what's the line? Even the smallest person can change the course of the future, I think, to paraphrase it. But I just love that scene.
It's so good.
I think, so a few of my favorite scenes. Firstly, Riders of Rohan. When they get surrounded by the riders and my God, that music starts playing and I'm just like, oh, something's happening. And I love that. The Riders of Rohan are my favorite. Second one is definitely the beacons are lit. The beacons are lit.
Yeah.
Gondor calls for aid.
And Rohan shall answer.
Rohan shall answer. That whole thing is just like, you get so fired up.
Yes.
In the first one, with Arwen, if you want him, come and claim him.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one too.
And then the best one that really made me as a female in the theater, like no man can kill me. It's like, I am no man. And she rips that helmet off and you're like, and she kills the Witch King. And it's so powerful.
It really is. And as I'm going to be honest, like I guess at that point I was maybe like 15 when I saw that. Oh my God, like that just blew my mind. I was a little bit younger, but like I think that was so important, and I think that's what's really great about these movies is that yes, the females have their kind of like love interests and they have that kind of somewhat emotion and motivation and stuff, but they're badass and they can hold their own. Yeah, they're saving Middle Earth along with everyone else. So it's not like that whole thing where it's like the women are like, relegated. Kind of relegated. Like they are like Arwen and Eowyn are like taking charge and they're like fighting, and I love that. One of my other favorite scenes also involves Aragorn, and that's just like when he just turns around and just the look in his eyes when he goes for Frodo and then just like runs at the Black Gate. Like, oh my God, when I tell you there are so many quotes and lines in these movies that give me just literal chills. Like I can't contain my joy. And it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. Like, they give me the same visceral reaction that they did the first time.
I know. Like I said, I get when I watch Two Towers and they introduce the writers and I just hear that music, I get goosebumps every single time.
100%, yeah. When Gandalf, like, crests over the ridge at, like, what is it, Helm's Deep or whatever?
Yeah.
And
Yes,
he's like,
they go,
look on the third day. And the light's coming down and Howard Shore's gorgeous score is playing. Oh, my God. Just lose my mind.
I think my first car that I had it has a CD player in it and everything.
Yeah.
I had all 3 of the soundtracks and I would just listen to the soundtracks driving around.
I used to fall asleep listening to the Fellowship soundtrack every single night for maybe 2 years. It's just God. I can just hear it. I just feel like it's just ingrained in me. Like I can hear the melody all the time. I love it. So those are things that we liked. Was there anything we didn't like? I think we talked about a little bit, but if there was anything else that you didn't enjoy per se from the films.
I think other than that little thing that I mentioned, I think other things, I think it's not much that is there, there's not much to not like. I mean, it's so well done. And in my opinion, it's timeless. Brings a lot together. Yeah, it's timeless.
Yeah, the only thing that hasn't really super aged well is maybe the dwarf toss me line.
Oh, no, that's great. I don't know what you're talking about.
That one is maybe a bit questionable.
Just full of innuendo now.
It really
but
is.
I do like how Gimli's like, don't tell the elf.
Yeah. I've got a couple ideas coming down here. I don't know if you guys will have anything to say about them. I found these films to be really interesting because they're like a reverse quest. Like a lot of the times in fantasy films, you're going to find something. This is like a film where you're trying to get rid of something that's already been found.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a different it's a different take on it. Like these characters, like you said, this thing has been there and it's been uncovered and, people are trying to come on their own quest to get it. And they're just like kind of running in the opposite direction to destroy it and to, getting pulled into all this other stuff, which ultimately is all thanks to the ring. It's all like it's doing and like the corruption of like men and like Middle Earth is like the reason all of this other stuff is happening around them.
Yeah, it's still got a lot of broad fantasy tropes, like a chosen one and, the fight between good and evil, but at its heart, like it still feels very different. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Tolkien really made a world. Like it's not just like, oh, here's a tiny like vacuum that this happened in. It feels so fleshed out and real that Peter Jackson could really just like, make everything visual.
Yeah. He created languages.
Yes,
he was
really
a linguist and made these languages. That's how in depth this lore was. It's like you can create background and you can create a story if you're an author. It's a whole other level. It's like, you know what? I'm going to create a whole language.
And then like different styles. So like there's like a form of Elvish that is based off of like, I think Finnish, but then there's also a form of Elvish that he created that was based off of Welsh. So
Hello.
Ethan, you could probably read it.
No.
They don't make you learn that there?
No, they don't.
Oh, really? Well, the next thing that we might be able to talk about is how death and immortality are handled in the film series. There's quite a few characters whose lives hinge on death and entire races actually in the films, like the elves. They're moving on from the world. Arwen's life is really... she's got a death sentence really on her if she wants to stay with Aragorn. She gives up her immortality. There's Frodo, him moving into the Grey Havens, not wanting to stay in Middle Earth. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lot to unpack with it.
Yeah. And then we could probably talk about Howard Shore a little bit.
Yes, please.
Okay. Fantastic composer of all three of these films, Howard Shore.
God. What?
They're beautiful.
The music is just insane.
Yeah. And not just like these scores, but the songs that go along. The original songs that were created, like Into the West, was it May It Be?
Yeah.
There's quite a few. I mean, they're beautiful.
It's like I said, every time I hear certain songs and like they come up and it's just like such a feeling of emotion kind of just like oversweeps you, whether it be somber or happy or like excited. It's just Howard Shore does an amazing job with that and just makes you feel like, oh yeah, something's happening.
I can't listen to it's the track at the end of Fellowship. I think it's on the actual like CD. It's called Breaking of the Fellowship.
Oh yes,
I can't listen to that without crying.
Yes, I completely agree. And I almost can't actually listen to Concerning Hobbits without getting a little choked up too, because it just is like, yeah, just those opening chords were really, I don't know, just formative.
Yeah.
So happy.
Yeah.
We touched a little bit on this, but we can also talk about how like women are represented in the films.
Yeah, I think it does a great job. I don't think that they put like these women in a box. Like you've got Arwen, who is dealing with, like you said, the fact of her own morality or mortality, and what is she going to do? And she kind of like tells her father, like, I love this man. I'm not going to like my life isn't worth being apart from him. And Éowyn, she sees Aragorn and she kind of likes him and she's like, oh, he's pretty. But that also doesn't deter from her being able to like needing like a man or like needing him to save her. She is like completely like, I can hold my own. And she does. She kills the Witch King.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like no one was supposed to be able to do that. And this woman does it. And like that is just the best thing ever. And like she wasn't even supposed to be in battle. Like she has to disguise herself as a man.
She rides in with Mary.
And rides in with Mary.
Yeah. It's just...
It's so
big,
good.
Yeah, important moments, because I mean, a lot of the films, the Fellowship is clearly like a group of men and boys, and I feel like a lot of the story, and honestly, a lot of like fantasy from especially like the time period that Tolkien published this. It was stories for men, and also they had like a lot to do with like the after effects of the war and how they process things, and that was something that the men were dealing with, and maybe not so much the women that were at home, but I really appreciated. And I think a lot of it has to do with how important Tolkien's wife was to him and how important he felt that she was in his own story. He gave the women in his books real agency, even when he didn't find moments to actually put them into the story, because obviously Arwen and Aragorn, they're from the appendices, like afterwards. They're not really like throughout the trilogy books, but I did appreciate the way that Peter Jackson kind of gave Arwen more agency throughout the films. It just added another woman to the story who was technically there, but just in different ways and not really in that particular group of books. And yeah, Éowyn, she just like, she saved the day. Where would they be without her? Like, she
Witch
really...
King would have like wiped the battlefield with him.
Yeah,
and he gets down off that like Nazgul, and she's like, "All right, let's go."
Yeah, and I love that like that play of words, like this prophecy, no man can like kill me, and I am no man, and it's the truth. Like, you think it's race of men, but really it's like they're talking about something else. I just love that. I loved that twist. And I remember watching it and reading it and just being like, oh my God, like just filled with such joy.
Yeah, I think that's the big part. And like when you watched it and like was in the theater, it's like, oh, and it's like everyone was so happy. It was like such a good moment.
Yep.
I'm curious, it's more prominent in the books, and if I remember right, it only shows up in the extended editions. But your thoughts on Eowyn and Faramir?
Well, I had read the books at that point, so I knew that she does end up with Faramir. I feel like it was in the extended editions fine, because I feel like those are almost for book readers. Yeah. Like, the things that they added in the extended edition sometimes only had more context to book readers. I didn't mind it because I knew that that's where her story ended up. And I like that they put a nod to it.
Yeah.
Personally.
Just wanted to ask about that.
Yeah. No, I like that they did that. And I felt like it kind of eased a burn for her, because she clearly, and not that she was rejected by Aragorn, and they didn't have like a real, but she did obviously have some sort of appreciation and like maybe a little crush going on there. And I felt like it was nice to see that she also got a little bit of a happy ending after all the struggles that she went through. I mean, she lost her cousin, she lost her uncle, that she did have like a little bit of her own happily ever after at the end.
Yeah. I do have to say I like the king, her uncle. I like when he kicks Wormtongue down the steps at Rohan. I love that. He just like kicks him down and he's like falling down the steps. They're like, get out of here.
Theodred.
He's like, get out of here.
One of the other themes that we could talk about is like, I mean, nature reclaiming the land. The Ents.
The Ents?
Yeah. Treebeard.
Also, like, I love looking at, like, going back and watching that and looking at all the background Ents and how, like, funny they look. Like, the one that puts his fires out of his head. He just goes and sticks his head in the water.
I love it. Oh.
They were cool. I like the interaction with the Ents, and they're having their meeting, and they're like, we have just decided to have a meeting. They're like, what are you talking about? You've been talking for hours. They're like, yeah, it takes us a while.
It's funny that they kind of like Merry and Pippin, the most like high energy people, get paired with this group that is just so slow moving. It's just perfection.
What does Treebeard call young Master Gandalf? Yeah. Which is just like Gandalf, a 3,000-year-old guy. He's young, apparently.
He's young compared to the Ents.
And then I didn't know, well, we did kind of talk about Frodo and Sam a little bit in the beginning, so I don't know if we want to skip that, because I was thinking about towards the end of the film how Sam moves on and Frodo moves on and Sam kind of stays. I don't know if we want to talk about that a little bit.
I think so. That always like got me, like as like being younger and everything. I was like, I never understood. I was like, why is Frodo leaving with everyone else? Why is it he's staying with? And I was like, did he die? Like when I was young, I was like, what is happening? I didn't like it when I did not like it. But now that I'm older, I understand the nuance and appreciate it. And it's like nice to see Sam with, his little family and, it's kind of nice.
It was, there's definitely like, and I'm not sure if like Tolkien, well, he definitely, if I remember correctly, like reading, suffered from a little bit of like survivor's guilt because a lot of his friends didn't make it back from the war. And I just feel like Frodo's journey sometimes like mirrored his own like mental feelings on how those things affected him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I agree with you. Like, I think like when I watched it, I was like, oh God, why is Frodo leaving, breaking up the band? But it made sense for him because he really just couldn't get out of. Well, he had a lot of pain from that. What was it? His like injury, his stabbing.
Multiple stabbings, technically.
Yeah, multiple. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I don't know. They just had different trajectories, but it's funny because they went on the same journey together, but they both had different outcomes. And then I figured we could have a little game of quickfire questions. Okay. So, different things.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So first question. Where do you guys belong in Middle-earth? If you personally were in Middle-earth, what group do you belong to?
I'm going to go elves all the way. Let's go to Rivendell. That's where
Yeah.
That's my smart answer, but my real answer is Hobbiton.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, I want to say that I'm an elf, but I am definitely not. I am a hobbit. Like, I aspire to be an elf, but I am definitely a hobbit.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. All right, next question. Are you guys a theatrical edition person or extended edition?
I actually have an interesting answer to this one.
Ooh, tell.
So for the last 10 years, I will watch these films at least once a year. For the last 10 years at least, I've only watched the extended editions.
Yeah.
But when theatres reopened in the UK earlier this year, they showed the theatrical editions. Mm-hmm. So I went to watch them because I wanted to see it in the theatre.
Yeah.
And there's a reason they were presented that way for the theatre.
Yeah.
This how they work. The extended editions would not work watching it in the theatre.
No.
So it's not a preference of one or the other. It's dependent on the circumstances for me.
That's a good answer. I don't even remember what the theatrical editions are like anymore because I haven't seen them in so long. So I'm going to have to go with extended.
Yeah, I think for me, extended.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think there's just so much in there to appreciate and so much there that, like you said, like if you've read the books, then it's just like those little kind of like callbacks and stuff and like those little like Easter eggs that you can find. So I definitely think there's a lot in the extended edition for you to really grab onto.
Yeah. All right, next question. Gandalf the Grey or Gandalf the White?
Grey.
Gandalf. I'm going to go with the white. Gandalf the White. I think it was just like when he is like in that forest and everything, and it's revealed that he made it, and it's just this big blinding light, and they're like, what?
I just love the little
that.
shit stir of a Gandalf the Grey is.
This question is like asking me to choose my favorite child.
You've only got the one.
You know, I love Fireworks Gandalf. Like, Fireworks Gandalf, he's my buddy. But then I also love, like, emotional Gandalf talking to Pippin about how they're probably going to die, but it's okay. This isn't the end of the story.
But then I'd say Gandalf the Grey as the most emotional thing when he's talking to Hobbit. Not a Hobbit, to Frodo in the Mines.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, fudge. This is a hard question. I don't know why I wrote this.
I got an easy answer for the next one.
Okay, all right. Arwen's choice. Do you want immortality and the Grey Havens, or do you want love with Aragorn?
She's got to choose the love.
It's easy. Immortality, go to the Grey Havens, then find a hot elf to fall in love with for the rest of time.
No, but she loved this man.
All right, you know what? Yes,
well.
but this is what we would choose if we were in Arwen's seat, and I'm going to go with Ethan because the Grey Havens sound awesome.
Yeah, it's an easy choice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Aragorn's nice, but he's going to die.
He's going to die.
Yeah, maybe not tomorrow, but if I could live forever in the Grey Havens, yes, please. All right. Are you a fan of the battle for Helm's Deep, or do you like the siege at Minas Tirith and Pelennor Fields better? What was the better battle for you?
Helm's Deep, I prefer as the whole, but Pelennor Fields as my favourite moment of any battle in the films.
And which one is that?
It's the Charge of the Rohirrim.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Good call. Scarlett.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with that. I think Helm's Deep, like the setup and everything, and that kind of like fighting and stuff. But I think with the Pelennor Fields with the Rohirrim, like beautiful. Like chills just thinking about that.
I'm gonna have an opposite choice. I actually love the battle for Helm's Deep, and I will say that. This is not something that is in the books. This was added for the films, but I love when the elves show up to help fight. And it's
my boy
not,
Haldir.
Yes, Haldir shows up, and you know what? It's just like, I found that so moving, and it was cinematically beautiful, and I knew it was not canon, but I did not care. I was in it.
We come to honor that alliance once more.
Yes! Oh, God. And it just felt so right in the moment. Now, in the books, it makes a lot of sense that they're not there because they're moving on. They don't care about the qualms of men at the moment and the squabbles they're in. But, man, in the movies, it made me feel...
one of the most emotional deaths in the entire films.
Yes!
For a guy who has, like, 2 scenes.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I loved it.
Is it that battle where... which is the battle where Aragorn gives that big speech?
Well, I mean, he gives a big speech at both of them.
Are you talking about the one, ride out with me?
Which one? What?
When he's asking Theoden to ride out with him.
Well, he's on his horse and he's going back and forth. He's like, I
think that's the one at the Black Gate that you're thinking of.
Yes.
Oh, I was trying to think because I know he says something. He's like, was it today is not this day, or what is that line?
I'm blanking now.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of it. I can't remember.
Hold on, I've got my quotes book here, so it's probably. In here, written in Comic Sans, because that was...
Oh my God, Ashley.
I am a loser. Here we go. Sons of Gondor, of Rohan, my brothers, I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Yes,
an hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. And all that you hold dear and good on this earth, I bid you to stand, men of the West.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Where is he? Is that at the Black Gate when he gives that speech?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then right before that, then he's like, for Frodo. And then just goes running.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Our next question. Do you want an hour-long conversation with an Ent or an hour-long therapy session with your buddy Gollum?
I don't even want to spend a second of time with Gollum, so I'll happily speak to an Ent for an hour.
I feel like we didn't talk about Gollum and Smeagol too much, so I feel like we need to talk about them.
Yeah, wait, why don't you want to spend any time with Gollum, Ethan?
Look at him!
How dare he can't help it that he looks this way. He was corrupted by the ring and spent years in caves.
Still doesn't mean I want to be killed by him.
Well, that's why you gotta outsmart him. You gotta do like what Bilbo and Frodo did.
Yeah, but you give me the option to possibly be killed by Gollum or just have a nice conversation with Treebeard.
This is true. You have to choose between the two. So you're going with Treebeard.
Yes, obviously.
And Scarlett, you're taking that therapy session with Gollum / Smeagol.
I am, because honestly, who wouldn't love to sit down and just have a love having a conversation with him. The whole in Two Towers, the whole conversation of him with himself and Andy Serkis is amazing at what he does.
Incredible.
And when he's talking back and forth between himself, and the small subtle differences too is Gollum has his eyes are cold and hardened, and Smeagol's eyes are all big and he's like a little puppy.
Yeah, he's got the puppy dog eyes.
And it's just I love that whole back and forth, and then he's so excited the next day when he's gone to get them fish and he brings it back.
Yup.
Like a dog. He's like, here you go, I got you some fish.
All right, next question. Does the Fellowship have your bow?
Wait, you didn't answer, Ashley.
I know, because I was trying not to. I'm not sure. Part of me wants to talk to the...
Murder or tree?
I think the trees.
Yes, exactly.
I love Gollum, but I really do want to talk to Treebeard a little bit. I think I'm going to choose the trees.
Yes.
Now, does the Fellowship, do they have your bow, your sword, or your axe?
My bow. I've always wanted to be able to, like, be an archer. I feel like I would not be very skilled with a sword or an axe because it involves swinging a big, heavy thing. But a bow, I can, I feel like that's a little bit more manageable.
What about you, Ethan?
Axe for me. They're very fun to throw.
It's a good choice.
Pretty simple.
I collect swords, so I think I'm going to go with sword.
Yes.
That doesn't mean I'm good at it, but I love them. I love the craftsmanship. My dad actually makes swords. So I don't know. I just feel really kindred with a sword. All right. So you have a weekend away. Are you spending it in Hobbiton or are you spending it in Rivendell?
Well, as it's already been decided I'm a hobbit, I'm going to go spend a weekend in Rivendell.
Good choice.
I would want to take a weekend in Rivendell just because it's so beautiful. Like, Hobbiton is beautiful.
Yeah.
But I also just think the beautiful waterfalls and everything that is there is just like, oh, I bet it smells nice there.
Oh,
it just
I
seems
know.
like it smells like beautiful.
Like ozone and like,
Yeah.
you know that smell of just clean? Like, I just feel mossy clean.
Yes.
I agree with you. I feel like this was a bit of a trick question. I felt like everyone was going to choose Rivendell, but I definitely want to go to Rivendell.
Yeah.
All right. So, which cast member of the films do you want to watch them with?
I'm torn between two. I either want to watch with John Rhys Davies because he's a fellow Welshman, obviously. Yep. So it'd just be us joking about for 9 hours. Or Ian McKellen.
Oh, good one.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's Ian McKellen, and I just want to talk to him for 9 hours.
Totally agree. I'm going to choose like a selfish one and say...
Is it Orlando Bloom by any chance?
I'm going to make my 13-year-old dreams come true, and I would choose Orlando Bloom. He says almost absolutely nothing in the films, but I don't care. I would just make my dreams come true.
I feel like I'm going to cheat with this one because I'm going to say two. I feel like Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd together. I just feel like watching that with them would be like, they're so amazing together and as actors, like they're hilarious. Which if anyone doesn't know, Stephen Colbert is like the largest like Tolkien fan. Like he's read the Silmarillion and knows everything. And so like I think when they were doing the Hobbit movies, like Peter Jackson like set up a thing. They had like their own on-site historian, like Tolkien expert, and like she and like Stephen Colbert quizzed each other and like came up with their own like question to like stump the others, and Colbert won. He won that quiz because he is that much of a nerd about Lord of the Rings. I was watching a clip from the Tonight Show, and Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd were on there, and they tried to stump him again, and like came up with a hard question about their characters for him to figure out. And just watching him try to figure out and answer that, he's like going back in his mind of like all of the lore. It's amazing.
They have a great friendship, and they do a podcast now, and they've had Elijah Wood on, which they do a 2-parter. Really great. They're just like a wealth of information from the filming of these series, and they're just great to listen to and watch.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would, if you could bring anyone on your journey to Mordor, who would you bring?
I'd bring my own personal Gollum, Dan McMahon.
Excellent.
I was going to say quite the opposite. I don't know if I would want Dan to be on this journey because he would say some shit that would get us killed, or he would try to fight with an Uruk-hai and we're dead because Dan is not going to be able to fight against an Uruk-hai. Or like he would do something, or he would align himself with like the bad guys. Like he would walk right up to like the Black Gate and like Mordor and be like, "All right, Sauron, come on, let me in. Let me in." He would pull that stunt. So I'm the opposite. That is the one person I would not want to bring on the journey.
I I was going to say I'd bring my dog, but you guys can bring Dan. It'll be great.
If I tried to bring my dog would just run away.
I just want a buddy. All right, so final question. If you were in a torture chair and you had to watch 10 hours of one thing, would you rather watch Denethor eating the tomatoes or Gollum eating the raw fish?
Well, one of them is going to be sick and one of them isn't. So Denethor.
Yes.
Probably Gollum eating the fish, because, I like sushi, so it's...
Same thing.
It's kind of the same thing,
Good answer. I think I would choose Denethor just so I could listen to Pippin sing his little song.
Yeah.
But then you just be crying for 10 hours.
Yeah. And then I wasn't sure, we're coming to a close here. I wasn't sure if anybody had any, favorite quote or something that they wanted to share.
I've got my favourite quote ready to go.
Go for it.
It's from the Battle of Pelennor Fields. We've already discussed for a moment. Arise, arise, riders of Theoden. Spear shall be shaken, shield shall be splintered. A sore day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride now, ride. Ride for ruin and the world's ending. Death, death, death. For Theolingus.
Love it.
So good.
Excellent.
So good.
Scarlett, do you have a fave?
I think I've already said a lot of my faves. I think definitely the whole the beacons are lit and the I am no man. That will forever always be one of the top quotes from this. I think that has, there's some other little things full of a took and that whole speech he gives. I love that. But the one that gets me is that one and the Blackgate speech that he gives. Those are kind of my takeaways, my big ones. Oh, and also, of course, the "you shall not pass." One of the best to ever, that whole, bringing the thing down.
That's in the cultural lexicon now.
It is in the cultural lexicon. People know that because of this.
I think my favorite quote, and I don't actually think Sam is the one that says it, or some of the lines in the books, but Sam says the lines in The Two Towers. It's, I know it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered, full of darkness and danger they were. Because sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How can the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, a shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folks in those stories had lots of chances in turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. And Frodo says, "What are we holding on to, Sam?" And Sam says that there is some good left in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Oh. It's one of my, I remember, sobbing in the
such
theater.
A good moment.
Yeah, it's just, there are so many, lines and just moments in these films that I think have a real emotional connection with so many fans and people, whether they be the biggest fan in the world or the most casual fan. There is something that they can attach themselves to and find meaning in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, I was interested if you had to rank the three movies in order from your favorite to least favorite, what would they be?
Well, my favourite is absolutely The Hobbit: Battle of the Five Armies.
Good one.
No, my
Was it the dwarf rides in? Is he riding a pig like a hog?
Billy
Is that what he rides?
It's Billy Connolly just riding a pig.
Yeah. I love Billy Connolly.
I know, my actual favourite is Two Towers. bet it's Fellowship and Return of the King, but they're all so close to each other, it doesn't really matter.
I know. I think The Fellowship is my favorite. I love beginnings. Like, I'm a big beginning person. I will go back and watch pilots of TV shows. Like, I just love where things originate. So Fellowship is my favorite. Return of the King is actually my second favorite, although The Two Towers has a lot of moments that are actually my favorite moments. But the whole storyline with Frodo and Sam kind of suffers from middle book syndrome, where they're just kind of plodding along. Like, things happen, but it's a little slow for me. I used to, when I was younger, just kind of like fast forward through their bits a little bit when I was watching the movies.
It's just representative of Tolkien writing 100 pages just talking about the mountains and how they look.
So I think as far as like watching straight through, The Fellowship is my favorite, then Return of the King, and just The Two Towers by sheer fact that I would fast forward through some parts.
I think for me, Two Towers is one of my favorites because that's when, you know, you get to see, I kind of agree, like the Sam and like Frodo stuff, I like it with the Gollum stuff. I think that's the fun stuff. But I really like the whole, like the Rohan and the Rohirrim and stuff like that. And then, so it goes Two Towers, Return of the King, and Fellowship. Fellowship, I always like the other ones more, and I guess it was just because there was more stuff happening. Yeah. Like, it to me, it got more interesting because you see a lot of these other people, and you see these different areas, and although I do like the video game, I think it was The Two Towers on the PlayStation 2, where you play through events of the first movie and then it goes into the second game, which is pretty good.
I haven't played any of the games.
I've heard Dan played the new ones, the like Ghosts of Mordor and stuff like that. Yeah. He said that those were pretty cool, which is kind of cool because you run into like orcs and stuff, and they just like have like they kind of have like just like banter, like you can just talk to them, and they have like hilarious things to say.
Oh, yeah, they're kind of like the stormtroopers of the world. Like they have like just like the weird conversations off on the side.
Yeah, me trying to explain like the difference to Dan between like the orcs and the Uruk-hai is great.
Funny,
like, okay, this is how this happens.
I had that conversation with RJ today. It's just like, so what's the difference between them? Well, meat's back on the menu tonight.
Meat's back on the menu tonight, boys. I like the one that's like, yeah, what first? He has that weird, like, yeah voice.
This has been awesome. I'm so glad we got to talk about pretty much one of my favorite things in the entire world. Thank you so much.
Yes. If you want to check us out, you can follow Gatecrashers at Instagram at GatecrashersPod. I believe it's the same on Twitter, GatecrashersPod. You can find us now on Twitch at The Gatecrashers. And you can also follow us on TikTok at GatecrashersPod as well.
Yeah.
And don't forget to also check out our website where we've got God knows how many wonderful writers doing amazing stuff for us.
Yes. So thanks for joining us.
Bye.
We'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Gatecrashers.